I've been working the night shift at a small industrial warehouse for almost 2 years now. It's one of those jobs you take because it's the only thing available. Long, lonely hours spent in the dark, surrounded by empty boxes and machinery. But the pay is decent and it's quiet, or at least it used to be. The warehouse is on the outskirts of town, not much around it except for a few other factories, all of them long shut down or barely in business. When I first started, I was told the place had been open for decades, but the owners were getting ready to close it for good. That didn't bother me though. I had my rounds to make, monitoring the security system and making sure nothing was broken into. But after a few months, I started noticing strange things. At first, it was small stuff. Little noises in the middle of the night, like footsteps echoing through the hallways. I thought it was just the old building settling, or maybe the wind pushing on the windows. But then, it got worse. The noises were too consistent, like someone walking behind me, but when I turned around, there was nothing there. One night, around 2 a.m., I was in the main hallway, checking the doors when I heard something coming from one of the storage rooms. It sounded like a muffled conversation, 2 voices, low and indistinct. I figured maybe someone else was still working in the building, but that didn't make sense. I was the only one on the schedule, and I had double-checked before my shift. I approached the room cautiously, my flashlight cutting through the dark. When I opened the door, the room was empty. Nothing but piles of dusty crates and a few broken-down machines. I didn't think much of it. Maybe I was just tired. But as I walked back down the hallway, I heard it again. Those same voices. This time, they were clearer, though still distant, and they were coming from the ceiling. I stood still, staring up at the rafters above. There was nothing up there, just empty space and the creaking of the old metal beams. But then something happened. A voice, distinct and clear, called my name. Darren. I froze, heart hammering in my chest. There was no one there. I turned to look down the hallway, still empty. I quickly checked the security monitors, nothing on the cameras. It was just me in the building. I don't know why, but I decided to go up into the attic. Maybe it was the adrenaline, or maybe I was hoping to prove myself wrong. The stairs creaked under my feet as I climbed, flashlight trembling in my hand. When I reached the top, the air was cold, the silence deafening. I moved slowly, scanning the attic with the beam of my light. Nothing. But then I saw something, a shape in the far corner. It looked like a moving shadow. I rushed forward, but when I turned the corner, there was no one there. Just an old, rusted pipe running along the wall. But when I looked down, I noticed something strange. A set of footprints in the dust. Fresh ones. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. I didn't even finish my shift that night. I left the building and I never went back. The company shut down soon after, but I've heard stories from the few people who still work in the area. They say there's been a history of strange disappearances there. Sometimes some items would disappear without a trace. I don't know what happened or what was really going on in that building, but I'm convinced I wasn't alone that night. A few months ago, I started a night shift cleaning job at a hospital. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. The hospital was old, built in the 60s, and had that sterile, clinical smell that you can never quite get rid of. I'd arrive at 10 p.m., clean up the patient rooms, mop the hallways, and finish by 6 a.m. Easy work, if you ignore the fact that the place looked haunted. The first few nights, I didn't think anything of it. It was quiet, just the sound of my mop swishing across the floor, the flickering of the fluorescent lights above me. The occasional nurse or security guard would pass by, but for the most part, it was just me and the eerie hum of the hospital at night. But then, something changed. I noticed it when I was cleaning one of the long hallways on the 3rd floor. The rooms on this floor were mostly empty, just the occasional patient or staff member. As I was walking past one of the rooms, I heard a faint sound, soft, almost imperceptible. At first, I thought it was the wind or a ventilation system kicking in. But then, I heard it again. A voice. It wasn't loud, but it was distinct. It sounded like someone whispering. I stopped in my tracks, listening. It was coming from room 312. I looked inside, but the room was dark and empty. The only thing that moved was the curtain by the window, swaying slightly in the breeze. I brushed it off as nothing, just my mind playing tricks on me from the solitude. But that night, the whispers didn't stop. Every time I passed that room, I would hear the same thing, soft murmuring. It was subtle, but it was always there. The next night, I decided to investigate. I waited until the hallway was quiet, then slowly approached room 312. As I got closer, the whispers grew louder. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like someone was talking to me, directly at me. I could feel a chill on the back of my neck as I pushed the door open. There was no one inside. But then, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The bed, empty just minutes before, was now occupied. There was a figure lying there, an old man, but he wasn't moving. His face was pale, lips cracked, like he hadn't been alive for days. And yet, he was there. I took a step back, almost stumbling. The voice came again, clear this time. Help. I couldn't breathe. The room felt suffocating, the air thick with the smell of decay. I ran out of the room, my heart racing, and I didn't stop until I reached the security desk on the 1st floor. I told the guard, but he just looked at me like I was crazy. No one else had reported anything strange. The next morning, when I came back to work, I found out that the man who had been in room 312 had died days before. They said he'd passed away quietly in his sleep. But I know what I saw, and every night after that, I could still hear the whispers when I passed that room, until my shift ended. I haven't worked that job in weeks, and I can't go near that hospital anymore.